I didn't even hear my name the first time they said it. I was slicing strawberries in the kitchen, half listening to my mother-in-law talk to her sister in the living room, when the word babysitter floated in like smoke under the door. She's great with the kids, like a live-in babysitter. Honestly, it's a blessing. I don't know how Lonnie does it all. They laughed. Not a mean laugh, just that offhanded, dismissive chuckle people use when they've already decided where you belong, in their world. A live-in babysitter. I didn't say anything. I just kept slicing strawberries, but slower now, pressing the knife down until the juice bled into the cutting board. The edge of the blade caught the tip of my nail and sent a small sting up my finger, but I didn't flinch. I just wiped it on the towel and kept going. It was her house, yes, but it was my money that paid off the second mortgage. 3 years ago, I had sold the last thing I had of my father's, his old vintage car. It wasn't running anymore, but it had value, emotional and otherwise. I told myself it didn't matter, that we were building something together, that helping my sister and her kids stay afloat was worth it. Just until she gets back on her feet, I had told my therapist at the time. But it's funny how people don't get back on their feet when you keep handing them yours to stand on. Lonnie had 2 daughters. Beautiful, bright, always sticky-fingered, and barefoot, always crawling into my lap with glitter on their cheeks and dried cereal in their hair. I loved them. That wasn't the question. It was the way love slowly turned into labor. What started as, "Can you watch them while I run to the pharmacy?" turned into, "I picked up an extra shift, dinner's in the freezer," and then, eventually, silence. No updates. No thank yous. Just assumptions. Somewhere along the way, I went from sister to sitter, and no one told me. The house was quiet that afternoon, sunlight spilling in through the gauzy curtains that I had paid for. I remember standing in the kitchen, surrounded by everything I had helped them afford, and realizing no one saw me anymore. Just the babysitter. I didn't say anything to her that night. Not when she got home and gave me that absent-minded "you're a lifesaver" as she scrolled on her phone. Not when she asked if I could keep the girls an extra night because James was flying in and they needed space. Not when she walked past me and kissed the top of my head like I was a dog that had fetched the paper. I just nodded. I folded the laundry. I sorted the mail. I helped little Nia with her fractions. But that night, when they were all asleep, I opened my laptop and began quietly organizing every receipt I had kept since moving in. I had emailed myself PDFs of the transfer confirmations, the wire to her, mortgage account, the emergency repairs I covered when the roof leaked. I dug out my handwritten ledger, the one she mocked me for keeping, and scanned every page, and I uploaded them all to a folder named My House, My Silence. The thing about slow disrespect is that it never arrives with a slap. It seeps in, like damp into the corners of a room no one checks anymore. It shows up in the way your name is last to be said, or not said at all. The next morning, Lonnie asked me if I could pick up the girls from school. Her tone wasn't rude, just procedural, as if I were an app she could schedule around. No eye contact, no warmth. Just the quiet assumption that I had nowhere better to be. And the truth was, I didn't. Not because I lacked options, but because I had given them up. A year ago, I turned down a job offer out of state, an art instructor position I'd dreamed of. It was small, at a community center, but it was mine. When I told Lonnie, she had cried. Real, mascara-running tears. "I can't do this without you," she said, rocking Nia in her arms, the kitchen light behind her like some false halo. So I stayed. And that choice grew into a pattern. I stayed through the late-night stomach bugs, through her second breakup with James, through the flooded basement, the missed bills, the nights she forgot to come home. And now, I was a fixture in the house. A soft-voiced background character in a home that ran on my quiet yeses. That day, when I picked up the girls from school, Nia handed me a crumpled drawing. It was us, stick figures but clear. She'd written under it, "Me, Mia, Mommy, and our babysitter." I smiled. It wasn't her fault. She was just repeating what she'd heard, but something inside me tilted. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat up in the small room off the laundry, my guest room, though I'd lived in it for almost 2 years, and stared at the ceiling. The same ceiling I helped pay to patch when the water stains began to spread. I remembered the receipt, $1,145.32. I still had it in my folder. At around 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and clicked into that folder. My house, my silence. I added a subfolder, the timeline. I began compiling emails, messages from the bank, my own calendar entries. I wrote a brief summary under each. January, sent $4,000 to cover property tax. March, paid contractor to fix back porch. Lonnie on vacation in Palm Springs. It felt like building something solid beneath my feet again. Not a weapon. Just a truth. I didn't want revenge. Not then. I just wanted reality to have a spine. The next morning, Lonnie announced they were having guests over for the weekend, James's parents. She looked at me, coffee in hand, and said casually, "Would you mind staying out with the girls for the night? It's just easier, you know." "Where would I go?" I asked softly. She blinked at me. "You could take them to the park or something. Or maybe do a sleepover. You're so good at that stuff." I stood there, mug half raised. The ceiling fan hummed above us. And it hit me that in her eyes, I wasn't part of the home. I was an accessory to it. "I see," I said. She didn't catch the shift in my voice. Or maybe she did, but chose to ignore it. She smiled and kissed the top of my head again. That afternoon, I took the girls to the park. I pushed them on the swings, packed them peanut butter sandwiches, and smiled at their giggles. But I also called a storage facility on 34th and Main. I asked about renting a unit. I asked how soon I could move in. Just information. Just planning. No drama. No warnings. Only silence. Thick, steady, and mine. Lonnie had started calling James babe again. It slipped into the air over dinner. Light, flirty, sugar-laced. I didn't say anything, but the word lingered longer than the scent of burnt garlic on her reheated lasagna. I sat at the far end of the table, next to Mia, wiping spaghetti sauce from her chin, while James laughed at some story Lonnie told about. Her struggle years. The ones where I covered half the mortgage, and they posted beach photos tagged "Hustle." James had brought wine. A dry red. He poured it for Lonnie, none for me. Didn't ask, didn't look my way. I watched the droplets slide down the glass stem, watched her sip it like the air didn't ache with erasure. After dinner, I did the dishes while they retreated to the den, the girls already half asleep upstairs. The sink water was hot enough to sting, but I kept my hands in it. Sometimes pain felt cleaner than resentment. As I scrubbed, I heard Lonnie's laugh echo from the next room. That too familiar, performative pitch she used when she wanted to be adored. It used to hurt less, I think. Back when I believed this was a pause in my life. A temporary chapter, not the whole story. I dried the last plate and walked upstairs. The hallway smelled like coconut conditioner and nightlight heat. I peeked, in on Nia, already curled up with her favorite pillow, one I'd sewn from my old college t-shirt. She didn't know that, of course. I closed her door gently. In my room, still called the laundry nook by Lonnie, I opened my laptop. The folder sat there. My house. My silence. And beneath it, my new file. List of transfers. Every line was color-coded now. Green for rent, blue for repairs, red for bills that saved them from default. I added a new row. September 12th. $75. New math workbooks for Mia. Not reimbursed. It was a small thing, but it was mine. Evidence of presence. Wasn't going to yell. That was never my style. I wouldn't throw plates or post rage online. I didn't need an audience to believe me. I just needed to remember, to carve my version of truth into a digital stone, something unmoved by their forgetfulness. The next morning, I got up early, made coffee, folded the living room blankets, put the girls' backpacks by the door, left out vitamins in 2 small dishes. Lonnie didn't notice. She was on the phone, pacing barefoot in her robe, her voice bouncing between irritation and charm. I caught only half the conversation, but I heard her say, "Yeah, she's still here. Honestly, I don't know how I'd manage without her. But no, she's not staying forever. It's just convenient for now." Convenient. A folded chair, a nightlight, a placeholder. That afternoon, I booked the storage unit. 1 month. Climate controlled. I didn't tell anyone. I began packing my things slowly, subtly. My books, my sketch pads, my framed photo of Dad. I slid them into boxes during nap times, during midnight hours. No one asked about the empty spaces, and I didn't offer an explanation. But the folder on my desktop grew, and so did my silence. I started keeping a toothbrush in my bag. It felt like a small betrayal. Not of them, of the version of myself that used to hope. The one who used to wipe the bathroom mirror after her showers and imagine that one day they might actually see her. A toothbrush meant I didn't have to come back. It also meant I finally understood that no one was going to stop me from leaving. They were too used to me folding into the walls, too sure that I'd always be there, just outside the frame of their family pictures. They took a new one last Sunday, a fall-themed photo shoot in the park. I was the one who packed the snacks, combed Mia's hair, and carried Nia's jacket. But when they posed under the trees, arms locked and smiles bright, James asked me to take the picture. I handed him back his phone after, my fingers cold. "Want to be in one?" he asked, not even looking up from the screen. "No," I said. "I'm good." And it wasn't anger. It was just clarity. I was the ghost who cooked dinner. The ghost who paid the winter gas bill. The ghost who'd stopped asking to be remembered. That night, I added 2 more receipts to the folder. One was from the grocery store, $142.77, including allergy-safe snacks for Nia. The other was from a locksmith. Yes, a locksmith, not for this house. For a place I hadn't told anyone about yet. Last week, While the girls were at school and Lonnie was on her wellness weekend in Sedona, I went to view a basement studio 2 neighborhoods away. Small, creaky floored, with cracked tile in the bathroom and a view of a brick wall. It was perfect. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was mine. I could hang a wind chime without being asked to take it down. I could cook late at night without tiptoeing past judgment. I hadn't signed the lease yet. I wanted to give myself space. But yesterday I did. I wired the deposit. I took the key. And then I walked home. This house, their house, with a calm I hadn't felt in years. No announcements, no drama. I just folded 3 shirts into my duffel that night, took my sketchbook, left the bed made behind me, corners tucked sharp. No one noticed. The next morning, Mia asked if I was picking her up after school. I nodded. Because I was. For now. Some things I wasn't ready to stop doing yet. Not because they deserved me, but because the girls had never asked me to disappear. But I had stopped making dinner, stopped doing their laundry, stopped answering to, "Can you just—" Lonnie noticed that part. Her eyebrows creased yesterday, when she opened the fridge. "Didn't we have more yogurt?" she asked. "Probably," I said. "I haven't gone this week." She looked at me like I'd said something cruel. But I hadn't. I was just letting silence stretch its wings. Lonnie knocked on my door for the first time in months. Not barged in. Not shouted from the kitchen. A real knock. Tentative. Almost polite. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, going through my last box. Old receipts, some family photos, a cracked ceramic mug I'd made in college, my initials carved into its uneven glaze. "Yeah?" I called out, without moving. She opened the door just enough to peek her head through. Her face wore that nervous half-smile she used when she wanted something, but didn't want to name it yet. "Hey. I was just wondering if you were okay," she said. I stared at her. That was new. She noticed the packed box behind me, the stripped shelves. Her smile faltered. "You going somewhere?" I let the silence stretch. Let it breathe. Then, eventually, she stepped further in, crossing her arms like she was cold. "Is this about the wine night? Or something James said? You've been a little distant." I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink hard. Instead, I looked up at her and said softly, "Do you know how many mortgage payments I made on this house?" Her eyebrows drew together, confusion creeping in. "What?" 13, I said. "Not counting the roof repairs or the taxes the year you were out of work. Not counting groceries, or school supplies, or emergency dental." She blinked, unsure if she was supposed to apologize or explain. "You always said we were family," I continued. And I believed that. But family doesn't call you the babysitter when you've been holding the whole house together. Her face crumpled slightly, like something fragile had finally cracked. "I never meant to make you feel—" "You didn't make me feel anything," I said. "You just treated me how you saw me." And eventually, I caught up. A beat of silence. Her hand touched the doorframe. Light, hesitant. "Where will you go?" "I've already gone," I whispered, because part of me had. The part that waited for her to say thank you. The part that longed for someone to notice the way I washed the sheets, even when I was too tired to stand. The part that once called this place home. She left the doorway after that, quietly. No slammed doors, no tears. Just footsteps down the hall. I heard her open the fridge, close it again. Heard the quiet hush of her whispering to James downstairs. I didn't care what they were saying anymore. That night, I slept at the studio apartment for the first time. It smelled faintly of dust and old paint, but it was silent. Mine. Sacred. I laid my blanket on the floor, placed the cracked mug on the windowsill, and sat by the radiator with my knees pulled up. I didn't cry. I just exhaled. For real. For the first time in years. The girls noticed first, not with words, but in the way they clung to me tighter when I dropped them off. In the way Nia asked if I'd be there for bedtime, and Mia whispered, "I don't like it when you're not home." Home. A word that used to mean me holding everything together. I wanted to tell them I was still near, that I hadn't disappeared, but I couldn't lie. I had already started drawing a line, and children deserve honesty more than anyone. So I knelt down, zipped up their backpacks, and said, "I'm still around. But I don't live here anymore." Mia's lower lip trembled. Nia's eyes darted to Lonnie, who was scrolling on her phone at the kitchen counter, coffee in hand, expression neutral, like she was reading headlines instead of listening to the conversation that should have torn her open. But she didn't look up. She never did until it was too late. I stood, patted Nia's head, and walked out. That afternoon, I didn't answer Lonnie's text. "Hey, can you pick them up today? James has a work thing and I'm exhausted." I stared at the message for a long time. Then, I opened my photo album instead, scanned through pictures I hadn't looked at in years. Me with my dad at my college graduation. Us fixing up his old car. A shot of my first paycheck, back when I still believed effort came back to you in equal weight. It didn't, but peace could. I left the message on read. No follow-up came. At the studio that night, I lit a candle on the windowsill and made rice, with soy sauce, the way I used to when I first moved out of my mom's place. The radiator rattled. The air smelled of lavender and old wood. I sat on the floor and drew for the first time in months. Not for the girls, not for a birthday card, not to please anyone, just a sketch of my own face. I didn't smile in it. But I didn't look lost, either. Around midnight, the phone rang. Lonnie. I let it go to voicemail, then again. Then again. On the fourth call, I picked up, only because I feared something had happened to the kids. "Hello?" I said, heart already bracing. "You're not seriously going to ignore me like this," she started. Her voice wasn't frantic. It was annoyed. Offended even. I asked for one thing today. One thing. There it was. The old script. "You didn't ask," I said quietly. "You assumed." A pause. Then the sharp intake of breath. "Oh my God, are you serious with this martyr act again?" I smiled. Actually smiled, not bitter, just tired. I'm not a martyr, I'm just done being invisible. I ended the call, not angrily, just calmly, like turning off a faucet that had been leaking for years. Afterward, I added one last entry to the folder. October 4th, final call received. I chose not to return. And then I closed the laptop, slid it under the bed, and let the silence become my favorite sound. A week passed, then two. No calls, no texts, no updates. I didn't check in either. Not even for the girls. That was the part that bruised deepest. Not because I didn't miss them, but because I finally realized how much I'd let my love for them keep me locked in someone else's silence. You can't rescue people from a house that pretends you were never part of its frame. On a rainy Tuesday, I went back. Not to see anyone. Just to collect the last few things I'd left behind. A set of sketching pencils, my raincoat, the quilt I'd stitched during lockdown. I timed it for noon. I knew Lonnie would be out, Pilates or lunch or some blend of both. The girls would be at school. James. I didn't care. I still had a key. I turned it slowly in the door, half hoping it wouldn't work, half hoping she'd already changed the locks. But it clicked open like nothing had changed, and that, in itself, said everything. The living room looked exactly the same, couch pillows still mismatched, the faint scent of jasmine detergent in the air. But something felt hollow, like a song playing in the wrong key. There was no note, no gesture, nothing to say. We noticed you left. I walked down the hall and opened the closet in my old laundry room turned bedroom. My coat still hung there, quietly waiting. My sketchbook was where I left it, resting on the shelf like a forgotten guest at a dinner party. I reached for it and paused when I saw something tucked between its pages. A folded sheet of paper. I pulled it out carefully. It was a drawing, Naya's. A stick figure family again. This time with a fourth figure drawn in a different color, standing slightly apart from the rest. She had long hair and a small heart on her shirt. Above it, in her messy handwriting, Auntie lives somewhere else now, but I still love her. My throat tightened. My fingers trembled. I placed the sketchbook gently in my tote bag, zipped it shut, and stood for a moment longer in that hollowed space. Then, without a sound, I walked out. I locked the door behind me, slow, deliberate, final, and slid the key underneath. No note, no goodbye, only silence, left like a gift on the floor. Back at the studio, I pinned Nia's drawing to the wall above my bed. Not because I was staying stuck, but because it reminded me why I had to leave. Love didn't mean servitude, and visibility shouldn't come at the cost of self-erasure. That night, I slept with the window cracked open, rain tapping gently against the glass, wind curling around the corners of my new life. I didn't know what came next. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of not being needed. It's been 3 months. The studio still smells faintly of old paint and sun-warmed wood. I've added plants to the windowsill, cheap ones, unkillable. I let light pour in now. I even bought curtains, not out of necessity, but because I wanted something soft to move when the wind visited. I haven't gone back, not once. The folder on my laptop still exists, but I no longer open it. Not because it isn't true, but because I no longer need to convince myself that it was. I lived it. Every late bill I covered, every night I held someone else's child while their parent partied or cried or disappeared into the next room without saying goodnight. I gave more than I had, but that doesn't make me generous. That made me invisible. There was a text from Lonnie last week. Hey, can we talk? The girls miss you. I miss you. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just need, once again, cloaked in affection. I didn't reply. Instead, I mailed a small envelope to their address. Inside was Nia's drawing. I couldn't keep it anymore. Not because it hurt, but because it deserved to live where it was born. I left a note with it, 5 words written in blue pen. She'll always have my love. No signature. Don't hate Lonnie. That would be too easy. What I feel is something quieter, heavier, a kind of mourning for the version of myself who begged to be seen, who confused sacrifice with worth. That woman is gone now. This new one drinks coffee in silence, sketches by candlelight, and smiles, quietly, when the wind slips past the curtain. She doesn't owe anyone anything. Not her time, not her apology, not even an explanation. And she no longer babysits love.